Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org. Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway. Their pharmacists are here to help you and your family stay protected, offering a wide range of vaccines, including flu shots and COVID-19 boosters. Stop into the store or schedule online at safeway.com/pharmacy.
Months of anticipation ends this week for city workers in Denver. We've just learned 171 Denver government employees will need to find other work. They started getting notified yesterday, and that's ongoing today. Denver's trying to make up for a $250 million deficit. In addition to the layoffs, more than 650 open positions will be eliminated. While this sounds like a lot, it's actually smaller than what the unions had feared. I'm Dan Boyce. Coming up, a legal showdown over kids' access to social media.
They know that their products are hurting kids, and they do not want to do anything about it.
So the state wants to require your kids to get a warning message. Then, protests over the possibility that ICE will get new detention centers in Colorado.
They're a national company, one of the biggest private prison companies in this country.
Plus, as students come back to campus, colleges have to figure out what to do with less federal funding.
But we're also not going to succumb to the anxiety game.
It's Tuesday, August 19th. Here's the news in Colorado today. Your kids are supposed to start seeing pop-up warnings on social media sites next year. That's due to a new state law that mandates messaging about the impacts of scrolling on brain development. But it's already drawn a lawsuit on behalf of some social media companies. Bozzy spoke with CPR's Ben Marcus, who has details on this new lawsuit.
Ben, how will this work? If the law does indeed take effect on January 1st as planned, what will these new warnings look like?
It would be a pop-up warning on the screen that would be triggered when a user who's under the age of 18 has spent more than an hour on a social media site within a 24-hour period, an hour or longer, or if they're on social media between the hours of 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. And part of the logic behind that was there is research that's come out that's shown a link between sleep disruptions and social media usage at night. Now, if they stay on social media, they'll get this pop-up warning every 30 minutes. And the pop-ups are supposed to include messages about the potential harm of social media on young minds. The specific content of that messaging has to be supported by the latest research. Now, the state will have a resource bank that will act as a source for that. Otherwise, based on my reading of the law, the messages have to only be supported by peer-reviewed scholarly articles. So it looks like the social media companies can choose what they broadcast to their users as long as it fits under that peer-reviewed scholarly article. If the companies don't comply, they say in their lawsuit they could face civil penalties of up to $20,000 for each violation.
How are the social media companies fighting this requirement, and why?
So Net Choice, it's a trade group that represents Meta, the parent company of Facebook, Instagram, but they also represent Pinterest and Reddit and X and YouTube. They filed a lawsuit against Colorado asking for a preliminary injunction to stop this one part of the law. They're suing in federal court, and they're saying, state of Colorado, it is against First Amendment rights to force us to broadcast this message.
How so? How does a pop-up warning affect their free speech?
So Net Choice is saying we're not like cigarettes and food. We're not something you put in your body. Social media is a, quote, speech service. And so therefore it's protected from being forced to broadcast messages by the state. Here's Paul Taskey, co-director of Net Choice's Litigation Center.
And if there's one thing the First Amendment makes clear, it's that the government has no role in compelling speech from anyone, whether it's a private individual or a company.
So they believe the pop-up warnings are compelling them to say something that they may not agree with. But don't movies and video games, for example, come with age-related ratings, which act as a type of warning?
Yes, those are voluntary, though. And according to the lawsuit, these notifications are being forced by the state and would require the social media companies to, quote, serve as a mouthpiece for the state, unquote. The complaint also says that the effects of social media on brain development, it's not settled, actually, that more research needs to be done. They cite the 2023 warning from then President Biden's Surgeon General about the dangers of social media. That warning also included a call for more research.
That warning, of course, was based on research that did point to harmful effects from social media. How are lawmakers reacting to the lawsuit?
They're disappointed. A lot of work went into stakeholding this bill to finding a middle ground, and they thought they had found a modest step to protect kids. Here's State Senator Judy Amabile.
They know that their products are hurting kids, and they do not want to do anything about it.
Any sense of how the broader public feels about all of this?
So an advocacy group, a nonprofit called Healthier Colorado, they supported this law. They commissioned a poll, and they asked a question specific to this law. They found that 69% of registered voters in their survey supported this legislation. Net Choice, though, the trade group for the social media companies, they've been fighting these things in states all across the country. They've had pretty good results. In Arkansas, they have halted laws in Texas and in Florida. Now, the Supreme Court recently said a Mississippi age verification law could go into effect, but Justice Brett Kavanaugh said that the law would likely be found unconstitutional.
We'll continue to follow this to see how it moves through the courts. Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
Several dormant prison facilities in Colorado could be reopened to house immigrants detained by ICE. This potential brought about 100 people out on Friday in Walsenburg. They protested President Trump's immigration policies, and they did it at the site of one of these proposed new detention centers. I met Jason Valdez. He's a local resident and organizer with the group Speak Up Southern Colorado.
There's no word that they're definitely going to do it or definitely not, but we don't want this in our community. We don't want it in our state. We don't want it in the country. It's not necessary.
The Huerfano County Correctional Facility in Walsenburg has been closed since 2010. It's a collection of several couple-story cell blocks surrounded by high fencing, topped with curling razor wire. It's owned by private prison company CoreCivic, which has contracts with ICE around the country. That agency is looking to rapidly expand the number of people it can hold at any one time, and the Huerfano facility could be a fit geographically for ICE's needs. Here's CoreCivic CEO Damon Heininger during a call with investors in May.
The capacity we've got in Colorado, I think having beds out west that are not all the way over to the coast in California, where they could service the needs of Salt Lake and Denver and even some of the needs out of Wyoming, Montana, makes our Kit Carson and our Huerfano facilities very attractive to ICE.
There's been no contract for the Walsenburg facility officially announced yet. However, in July, CoreCivic did post a job listing for detention officers in the city. Fight back! Fight back! And demonstrators were not waiting for the final decision. I interviewed them Friday as they stood just outside the facility, holding signs reading "No concentration camps" or "Stand against illegal arrests." Many other signs hung from a nearby interstate overpass. Local newspaper reports describe Huerfano County officials wanting this contract to come through, of county employees checking to make sure the utility lines to the facility are all working properly. The county could see some benefit if ICE does use this facility. The unemployment rate is one of the highest in the state, and it took a big economic hit when the prison closed 15 years ago. Reopening it for ICE could bring much-needed, good-paying jobs to the area. But demonstrator Jason Valdez says, not like this.
CoreCivic is not a company within this community. They're a national company, one of the biggest private prison companies in this country. Anybody who thinks that any profits that they make are going to stay in this community, those people are foolhardy.
He suggests county leaders should focus instead on propping up local mom-and-pop businesses. Other demonstrators came in from further afield. Alondra Flores drove down from Aurora with her 2 young children for the protest. Flores is a Mexican immigrant herself. She was brought as a child and says the U.S. is the only country she's ever called home.
It is because of my parents bringing me here that my kids are able to live that American dream along my side. Every single immigrant that I know comes here for a better life. We are not criminals.
I asked CoreCivic to talk about the potential opening of the Huérfano facility. They sent a statement from Public Affairs Director Ryan Gustin, and it says, "The services we provide help the government solve problems in ways it could not do alone, to help create safer communities by assisting with the current immigration challenges. These are problems the American public has made clear they want fixed." End quote. At the same time, the community in Huérfano demonstrated late last week. The Washington Post reported on internal immigration and customs enforcement documents. The Post says the two other sites on the ICE expansion list are the 1,100-person capacity Bighorn Detention Facility in Hudson and the small 28-person Southern Ute Indian Adult Detention Center. That's in Ignacio. You will see a lot of overstuffed cars in Fort Collins today because it's move-in day for students at CSU. Every Target in the area has turned into a war zone. Classes also start at CU Denver and CU Boulder this week. Through this excitement, however, questions loom about what's happening to university budgets in the age of Trumpism. Chancellor Justin Schwartz says at Colorado's largest university, CU Boulder, the back and forth of federal funding cuts is not changing their long-term planning for the most part.
Now, does that mean we're just completely blind to what's happening in the world? Of course not. But we're also not going to succumb to the anxiety game. Right now, so many of the potential changes are just that. They're potential changes.
He says they're aligned with other universities in a plan to lobby hard for NASA and the National Institutes of Health, which supports research happening on campus.
We have an incredibly strong government relations team at the CU system who are engaging through the processes with our congressional delegation, with our Senate team, to make it clear what it is we do and why it's important and why just about everything we do really is apolitical. I mean, is graduating students a political question? I hope not. Is doing research related to cancer a political issue? I hope not.
2/3 of CU's research is made possible by federal funding. So far, the university has lost about 40 grants.
And so, yes, the loss of those few $1 million is hard to swallow, and it's particularly hard on those researchers. It's a small percent of our overall enterprise, research enterprise, but that doesn't mean we will fight for every single one of those because we think every one of them is important.
Pell Grants for graduate students have also been cut. Schwartz says that's worrying, but there are other programs in place to help students and families who need financial support.
We also have the Colorado Promise, which means that our in-state students from families making under $90K aren't going to pay tuition either way. If there's a reduction in Pell Grants, we'll have to figure out how to cover those expenses in some other way.
Schwartz has reason for optimism as this new semester starts. Retention has risen steadily. He says it's because CU Boulder began to focus on supporting students outside of academics.
Our admitted students for this coming fall, over 50% had a 4.0 in high school. So the academic quality of our incoming students isn't the challenge. There's so many layers to student success.
He says it's programs like the Buff Undergraduate Success Effort that's meant to help students build community and stability. Schwartz says programs like that have been driving the success of the university and its students.
Part of our job is to simply remove those barriers, remove those things that can get in their way so that they have an easier time of focusing on why they're here, which is to learn, to engage, to figure out what they want to do and who they are, so that when they leave here with a degree, they are ready to do what they want to do in life.
To hear the full interview with Justin Schwartz, check out the Colorado Matters podcast. You can find a link in the show notes. Additional reporting for today's show came from CPR's Jenny Brundine. Colorado Today is supported by listeners, just like you, right? Thanks for letting me sub in the host chair today. Bozzy is back tomorrow. I'm Dan Boyce. This is CPR News.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Credit Union of Colorado. With access to over 30,000 ATMs and a mobile app, they're dedicated to offering the services of a big bank with a heart. Learn more at honestlygood.org.
Support for Colorado Today comes from Safeway, where you can shop online and get easy delivery or free pickup. Get the same prices, deals, and rewards as in-store. Shop the weekly ad, clip deals, and earn points at Safeway.com or in the Safeway app.